Hello, my name is Debbie, owlandgatorstitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 39. Today is Friday, August 26th, 2022. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. I think if you've been here before, you know that I usually say things have been quiet here, not much going on the life front, but I actually have been getting out and doing things for the past 3 weeks or so. So if you want to hear about Cottage Garden 3 and my work as an election poll worker, stick around till the end. But if you're just here for the stitching, I'm going to start off with that. So welcome to everyone. I hope that you all are doing well. And if you're a new viewer, welcome. I hope that you like what you see. And if you do, click on that subscribe button. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I got a lot of great comments in my last video, and I really appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. So before I jump in and start showing you my stitching, there's two things I want to show you first. The first is I want to talk about the Under 1000 Subs Club, and so the person I want to highlight is the Caffeinated Crafter. Her name is Jen, and she's also located in Florida. And Jen is a relatively new Flosstuber. I mean, she may have 10 videos or so. I didn't go and look at exactly how many videos that she's done, but she is one of these people who loves to start everything, and so every video she's like, oh yeah, here are all my new starts. And she doesn't have too many finishes, but she's okay with that. So as long as that kind of thing doesn't stress you out, she's a lot of fun to watch and just sort of seeing her love of cross stitch. And she's also involved in a lot of the games on Facebook. And so I'm on a couple of her teams, and it's just fun to sort of engage with people. And, I see pictures of their work, but then actually sort of see it, I don't want to say live, but in video and a little bit more up close and personal. So I hope you will go hop over and take a look at Jen the Caffeinated Crafter. The second thing I want to show before I jump in to show you my stitching is, I think many of you are familiar with Stitching Jules, and another Flosstuber. She's one of the people who has been around for a really long time doing floss tubes. I don't know if she's one of the old guard, but she definitely is someone who has been around since I've been watching Flosstube for the past 3 years and had a lot of videos by the time I started watching her. So she started a while ago her own design company. A lot of it is just taking either licensed art or publicly available art and charting it. So some of it's full coverage, some of it's black and white, but a lot of great stuff out there. So, and then some other patterns as well. So she made a call and said, if you are a smaller Flosstuber under 1,000 subscribers, and you were interested in stitching up one of her pieces and showing it, let her know. So I, along with a number of other people, volunteered. And so she kindly sent me one of her patterns. And so this is the one that I chose, or we selected together. And it is 3 dancers. And it is a full coverage pattern, but a relatively small one. I think it's 190 by 140, so under 30,000 stitches. So it should, I want to say relatively quick. It should stitch up. For full coverage, it is quite small. But I just love the colors in this. I love sort of the oranges and the yellows in the background, and then the 3 dancers there. I suppose if you were so inclined to get a nice printed fabric that sort of has this nice modeling on it, you could do it like that, but I am going to do it as a full coverage piece. So I'm really looking forward to this. In No New Starts, I do have a couple of starts that I can do at leisure. And so I'm probably going to start this over Labor Day weekend. I'll have some good quality time, some football, and I can get a really good start on it. So I'm just going to do it on a piece of 18 count aida, and it's going to be 2/1 full cross like I do a lot of my full coverages. So I'm really looking forward to embarking on this and going on this journey on 3 dancers. So let me go ahead and show you a lot of this stitching. It has been about 3 weeks since my last video. Probably even a little bit more. I think I did it early August. So I have quite a bit to show you. So let me jump in and show you. So the first piece that I want to show you is Oh Joyous Day by Blackbird Design. So I think many of you are familiar with this. And here is where I was before. And here is where I am now. So I think last time you probably can't tell, a lot of what I did before was is now behind the Q-snap. But I moved on, and basically I started working. This is the outline of the bird, and probably brought some of this down. This, I think, represents about 1 day of work, so not a huge amount of work, but nonetheless, it was good to sort of pull this back out and start working on other motifs on this line. This bird is quite large, and then obviously the house. And I sort of, once I get this band done, then I have only the bottom band to go. So this has been a lot of fun to stitch on when I work, as I am more inclined to work on some full coverages, so I don't pull out my samplers too often. But this one was fun to work on. So, oh joyous day. And I have 2 cats in here right now, and so if you're hearing strange noises, that's what it is. The next piece I want to show you is another, I say I don't do samplers much, and then I have 2 to show you this time. But this is Jane Bannister by Hands Across the Sea, of course, because of the cats. That's why I selected this one. I mean, it's a beautiful pattern, but many of Hands Across the Sea reproduction samplers are beautiful. So you can't, I can't do all of them. So I picked this one because of the kitties. Of course, I haven't even gotten close to the kitties. So here's where I was before. And here's where I am now. So basically, I have been working on this basket. So I was able to get a lot more filled in here and started pulling some of this down, or I should say, not even the basket itself, but the flowers in the basket. And maybe if I had colors left in my needle, I'd put a little bit of it in the border. So not a huge amount of progress, probably 500 or 600 stitches, but anything is progress, and really happy with the way this one is stitching up. Okay, next piece I'd like to show is my first full coverage I'm going to show you today, although certainly not my last. And this is Heaven and Earth Designs, Magic Study artwork by Rose Kahn. This is the rainbow version. And here is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So basically, I just started pulling. So I did some of this sort of dark blue in here, and then I started pulling colors as I would find, because the little holes were driving me nuts. I would see these rogue stitches, and this is 25 count, which is the smallest I will do my full coverages on. And the little holes were driving me nuts, and I was afraid, even though I have it on Pattern Keeper and everything, I was afraid like I was just going to lose track that I needed to do those little stitches. So started pulling in those colors and just filling in a little bit over here. And this was my one of my WIPGO draws for this month. My goal was 1,000 stitches, and I got in more than 1,000. So a lot of fun, really long way to go. Okay. And then the next piece, this is one I think I mentioned a few videos ago that I had one of my projects go missing, and it literally would not have gone out of this room. So I thought, okay, it's a smaller project. Maybe it slipped behind something in my closet, and we also store a kitty litter in there. And so moving things around isn't the easiest, because of big bags or whatever. But I said, you know what? Got to find it. Couldn't find it. And then I was, totally different time, was looking through my sort of some of my projects. I have them basically divided into 2 groups, and I go, what's in that project bag? And I unzipped it, and it was my missing one. So it was hiding in plain sight. And what happened was I have a lot of my things in clear plastic bags, and I just assumed this project was in there, and it was not. It was in a proper project bag, nice, beautiful quilted project bag. So, I did that to myself. But glad to know it wasn't missing, because that would make me a little sad, even though it's a small one. I put work into it, and I do love it. So, anyhow, this is the piece I am talking about. So this is Love One Another. It's from an old issue of Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. So I have made a decision not to do all this white border here, and the real reason why I decided not to do it had to do with the size of the fabric. I had a piece of black fabric in my stash, and I wanted to just use it, and that just added a little bit too much to it. It's already pretty tight up towards the top, but the white would have done more. And then when I started looking at the stitches, they're not cross stitches, they're specialty stitches, and I could have done it, but I didn't think it was. I'm glad the fabric size forced me not to do it, because the specialty stitches I don't think would have added much to it, and it just would have added a lot to frustration, especially because I probably would have done it at the end, and I just would have at that point wanted the project to be done. So anyhow, I only put in about 300 stitches into this, and here is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So basically all I did was I did a lot of work on the A, and the A is almost done. There is a few white stitches that I need to do, and then a back stitch. This is from the 90s, so there's lots of back stitch in this piece, but I'm fine because I think the back stitch will really make this pop. I mean, the colors already are really popping off of this fabric, but I do really like the way this one is coming out, and this is the first time I've worked on it this year, so I'm glad I found it, and I'm glad I had a chance to pull it out and put a few stitches into it. All right, the next piece I am going to show you is Anzak from Long Dog Samplers, so in case you're not familiar with it. And there you go, although I think many of you have seen this. I know a lot of people are working on this. I've seen a lot of pictures on Facebook and on Flosstube. And here's where it was before. And here is where it is now. So basically, make sure something behind it. So basically, I just did a lot of the stitches towards the top. So I may have had like one line going across. You can already have seen it from the previous video or the previous picture. But nonetheless, I was able to sew, a lot of these sort of negative space. So the bird has finally come in, as well as some of these shapes here. So I am going to pull this out. I don't know if it's probably, definitely before my next video, probably over the weekend, I'll have some good chance to work on this one. So looking forward to it. Love watching this come to life, as I think everyone who does a long dog says that it's just so fun that, I mean, yes, when you look at the cover photo, the kangaroos are very clear, but it's everything else that sort of comes out that you weren't expecting while you're stitching. So really such a pleasure to work on. Next piece I want to show you was my other Whip Go Draw. This is Simple Little Big Love by Alexandra Adelaide Designs, or Needleworks. I can't remember what the exact name of it is. Needleworks, Alexandra Adelaide Needleworks. This is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So basically, this is 3808, all of the outlining of all of these feathers. So I finished all of the outlining of the feathers, and now I'm just working on the fill-in. So I had done some of the fill-in down here already, but I just decided just plow forward with the outlining, and that way it can become relatively easy stitching. So just filling in. So I think after that, I just pulled out this is 742. So certainly I had some of this done, but finished this, did all of this, did this one, filled in some of these little things here. So my goal was 1,000 stitches, and I've done what I needed to do. So there you go. Next piece I'm going to show you is another old magazine piece. This is from another issue of Stitch Country Crafts, and it's Winter Wonderland. So there we go. Nice vintage looking piece. And here is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So really not much difference. I put in over 1,000 stitches of white. That was a lot of white. And I did a lot of this. I mean, I did some of it at home, but then I did a lot of it on the plane as well. This is a very, it's because I didn't have to, the pattern itself, I think for some of you who are familiar with these old magazines, the patterns themselves are quite small, the symbols. And so it's not the easiest thing to read, but basically this symbol was like, the small dot that you often get for white. And it just, once I figured out how many I needed to do across, I did it, and then I could just go back and forth. So basically all of this snow here, this is the bottom of, like, this is sort of a road. So I've made a decision, and this was the original pattern was done on white fabric. And so you sort of have the snow on top of white. I chose to do this. This is a hand dye, but it's from Witch Elt. So it's, I don't know. They call it hand dyed, but I feel like it's still manufactured hand dye. It's not, it's from a big company. Let's put it that way. It's not done in the basement of someone's home. So anyhow, but I decided I'm going to leave it this color. I don't need to fill it in because it is a night scene, because at least I think it's a night scene because this is the sky here. So anyhow, a lot of white, and then on top of the white, which I haven't done yet, there's a lot of backstitch trees on here. So it's not like I'm going to end up with this big blob of white. There's going to be stuff on top of it. So glad I've got some progress on this. So that's Winter Wonderland. Next piece I'm going to show you, I guess, again, I think I mentioned this last time. Somehow I'm in a winter mode right now, even though it's, it's been in the 90s here every day because it's summer in Florida. And so the next piece I'm going to show you is from Artecy. This is Evening Romance. And here is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So didn't quite get a page finish yet, excuse me. Didn't quite get a page finish. You can see I still have quite a few ninja stitches hiding out there. So I am determined to get all of those ninja stitches done by the end of this month. I was originally, as I'd find a color and then I'd have it on my needle and I'd keep it on the needle and finish it. And I'm like, I'm done with that. I am going to just pick a color wherever I find a hole, figure out where it is in here, cut it off, move on to the next one. I can guarantee I will have, this here. I will look and look and look and not see it anywhere else. And then, of course, like 2 stitches later, I'll figure out after I've cut it off and put it away that it is over here or something. It's the nature of rogue stitches, and this is a paper pattern, so it's just that much more challenging. But I do love the way that the lamp is coming out. That's really exciting for me. I think it's that old-fashioned romantic gaslight, that part of the reason why this attracted me so much. I mean, a nice serene scene with the cardinal and everything else, but the lamp. So you can see the lamp here right above the horse's head. So I don't quite get to the horses. That will come up when much later than now, because I am doing this across page by page. So this is obviously the bottom of the page. And this, I believe if I have it correct, there's another full page here and then a really skinny page, like maybe 10, 12 stitches across. So getting close to the 1/3 mark, but there's a lot still to go. I mean, this is almost 1,500 stitches that I put in, and I thought I was close to the page finish and still not finished. So I'm not very good at calculating how many stitches I have left. But anyhow, that is Evening Romance by Artecy. And then the next piece I want to show you, I got a lot of comments on this one last time. And I'm so pleased that so many of you like this piece because I love it. This is Old World Map by Artecy. I have it in plastic and I'm trying to get the glare off. So this is their large version. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen a lot of versions of Old World Map that basically, because a lot of those are old paintings, that they're in the public domain, and there's so many different versions of it, not just the same picture that has been charted by multiple companies, but different old maps that have been charted. And this is the one I like this one a lot. I wanted to do a map, and this was sort of I have to say Artecy was sort of the first full coverage company that I found online, and that's not to say that the other companies weren't online, but somehow Artecy was the one. Like, I have to say, like, I used to do everything through Mystic Stitch and Artecy when I did my full coverages initially, and I didn't even know what Heaven and Earth Designs was, or Charting Creations, or really any of those, which are awesome companies, but I didn't know anything about them. And so Artecy when I discovered that I could buy PDF patterns and not have to sort of, better selection that you can get through a store or anything else. And so that's why I ended up with this one. There's some gorgeous ones out there. I love this one, but there are plenty of others out there. But what I wanted to do, because so many people commented on it, I decided I'm not going to pull it all the way out of the Q-snap. But here is what I've done to date. Just trying to make sure I have it in there. So this was my oldest project, and this is about, it's about 2.5 years old. I started it on Christmas Day, I think in 2019. So not quite 3 years old. And I will say I started it in the diagonal. So I started up here, and it was the first piece. I had tried to do everything else before. I basically had done cross country. This was the first time that I had tried to do a piece in the diagonal, and it really wasn't for me. So it sat there for a long time, and I didn't do anything with it. And also because we all know what happened in 2020, and maps and travel and all of that made me a little sad because I wasn't doing any of it. And so anyhow, I didn't do much on this in 2020. And so then starting in 2021, initially I was trying to pull this out most days because it is my oldest project, to get some stitches in it. But it really was sort of messing up my daily stitching goals. And so I don't do it. So it doesn't get as much love as it should. It's sort of treated like a lot of my other projects. Pull it out when I feel like working on it, but not, it's not something I make a commitment to. But I did pull it out since my last video. So I'm going to show you now. So here is where it was before when I showed it last time. And here is where it is now. And so basically what I've started to do is I'm getting more focused. Originally I have in color completing across the page, and it was just getting to be too much. So I've been pulling colors in this area and working on it. So almost all these dark colors in here, and then started pulling some of pale pink. I can't remember if it's like 819 or 224 or something along there. I had done a lot of the 3865 up there, but now I'm starting to pull some of the really pale pinks that go in there as well. So very enjoyable project, and love working on it. I'm just going to show it again. I got a lot of love for this last time. I was really, really surprised. I show it almost every video, but just for some reason, either I just showed it so quickly and people were disappointed, or maybe I've got new subscribers and they just wanted to know more about it. But here's where it is again. So I'm not going to pull out the Q-snap every time, simply because I always feel like I'm going to rip out fingernails. That hasn't happened yet, but I always feel like that's going to happen. But really liking the way it's coming out. I think Artecy has done a fabulous job with charting this. So that is Old World Map. And then moving on to the videos. I don't know where my mind is going. Moving on to the projects that I show in almost every video. First one is High Intensity, the cropped version, also by Artecy. And this is a jaguar and his natural habitat. And my goal is to get this done by the end of the year. And I'm over 70% now, and given I was maybe at 20%, I'm doing pretty well. And it was time to move the Q-snap, so I pulled him out and want to show you where I am. So, loving him. I think he looks great. I have to make a decision about the direction I'm going to go. So I made a decision. So this is, so here is where it was before. And here is where it is now. So basically, I've been working down here because I knew this was kind of a boring part, and I just wanted to get it over with. So a lot of background, but also a lot of bulk stitching, so it went very quickly. So we've got all this foliage done, all this sort of dirt on the ground there. And so now basically what I have left over here to do, obviously, sort of the rest of his head and sort of shoulders. Do they have shoulders? I don't know. And then his two front legs. That's what I have left to do. So what I may do, this is, as I do everything, like I try and think like in terms of Q-snaps. So it's putting the Q-snap on and then moving it one more time. So what I may do is I might go ahead and start on this one, but I'm not, basically the Q-snap will come to about here. So I may do it like just focus on getting this part, which is more background, and then move the Q-snap and just sort of watch the whole thing come to life at the end. I really, that's one of the things I love about full coverage projects is really sort of, they look like nothing until all of a sudden they look like something. Like, when I was working down here, all this block stitching, whatever was, even if I didn't know what it was, like even if I couldn't tell what it was by looking at it, I knew, okay, it's green. I'm working on a leaf. I had no idea what I was working on down here. These color, I'm like, why? This is not like a leaf shape. And all of a sudden, like it starts coming together. I'm like, oh, and I knew there was a log with moss on it, but I couldn't tell. And all of a sudden you can now start to see like the moss really coming through and a little bit of the lines on the log. So really, really happy with the way this is coming along. I do have to do about 3,000 stitches a month now because I was not good at the beginning of the year, and it will take me about 3,000 stitches a month to finish this. It is a relatively small project. It is a cropped version. It has about 42,000 stitches. But I've almost hit my goal this month, and again, it's a really fast stitch. It looks big because it's on 14 count because that's what I had in my stash when I started it, and it fit. But really enjoying working on that. And then the last piece I'm going to show you, which is, I think I show in almost every video, is Cats in the Toy Box. And this is another Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Lesley Anne Ivory. So all those little kitties playing around. So I'm looking around for the kitties in my room, but they've decided that I am not talking with them. I'm not doing engaging with them, so they left. So I don't have any kitties in my toy box right now. But anyhow, this is where I was before. And here is where I am now. So basically sort of jumping back and forth, but pulling a lot of the colors in the teddy bear just to give the teddy bear a little bit more definition, and then really trying hard to pull colors that were up here. I'm not going to move the Q-snap probably before the next video, but my goal is to keep working top down, and then hopefully by the next time I show the video, I'll be ready to move the Q-snap after that. So really important that I pull the colors up here. And some of the things that were driving me nuts, like I had a few stitches here, like in the kitty's eyes that weren't done, and in the nose, and so was able to complete those. So that kitty may have one or two rogue stitches. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. I can't see it very well. But for the most part, that kitty is now done. And just love the colors on it. That, it's not just sort of grays, but pale greens and pinks and peaches and lots of really, really cute colors in that kitty. And got to work on the clown's face. Went back to that because it was looking a bit weird before, because he kind of looked like a passed out clown. Now he kind of looks like a normal clown. So obviously I still need to fill in there, but also pulling down this border, which is quite intricate. So this is not a max coverage. It's 79, 80 colors around that. So not a max coverage, but still, not a max color, but still a lot going on in there with the colors. A lot of color changes. It's not just red and blue. So again, still love it. I haven't worked on this actually for a week or two because I did not take it with me when I was traveling. And then past couple evenings, I was focusing on other projects. So I'll show you this part. So this one is a little bit over 60% done. This one is quite large. I think, well, for Haid, it may not be super large. It is a regular size, but I think it is about 150,000 stitches, somewhere around there. So it's not a small project by any means, but it's certainly not one of the, Magic Study, which I showed you, I think has 450,000 stitches. And it's not nearly as many as the next project. Well, my plans, when I get into my plans, I'll show you. But anyhow, that's Cats in the Toy Box. And I show this, I go like this every time because I just love kitties. I love cats. And this one has been a lot of fun to work on, even though I've had a few frustrations with it. But overall, I'm really, really glad I'm working on it. Okay, so that is all the stitching I have to show you, just a little bit with plans. So as I mentioned, I am participating in No New Starts, but I'm doing the Work Your Whips version for those of you who are not familiar with it. No New Starts is a Facebook group, and basically it's to encourage you to work on your existing projects. But the Work Your Whips sort of acknowledges that to have a whole year of not starting anything can be a little bit frustrating. So the idea is not to go hog wild crazy, but to rather to try and work on what you have, but give yourself, reward yourself every now and then. So we just had an album check and I passed that. So, which basically you just have to show that you're making progress. You have to update it. And it's like you have to do 1,500 stitches a month. And I do well more than that. My average is between 15 and 20,000 a month. So obviously doing 1,500 a month is not a big deal for me. For some people, when I was working full time, I probably still was doing more than 1,500 stitches a month, but not much more than that some months. Anyhow, so I have, and I also have a small that I finished a while ago. So I have that, to go back, I have the freebie from the album check. They also had an event that, like, part of it is that I'm doing a road trip. They have a virtual road trip where you're visiting cross-stitch stores across the country, and you're going to lots of stores and you're buying things with stitches. And the idea is that you collect, they've got a list and it's a random number they give you, you stitch for it. And the idea at the end is that if you get all the items, you can swap them in. And I don't quite have all the items yet, but I do obviously have some duplicates. But rather than, you also have the option of using taking, 15 of the items that you've purchased and swapping them in for a new free start. So I decided to do that. I used all duplicates. I didn't have to use a number up and then wonder if that number was ever going to come up again. Didn't have to worry about that. So I used all duplicates. And so I got a new start. So that's my second one. And then my third one, as I started to talk about, was a free start, because not a free start, but I finished a small and I had a slot for another small. So I'll one of those slots the freebie will be for 3 dancers, which I showed. And I'm just going to reach over here. Probably getting a lot closer to me than you wanted to. The second one, I think this is one that has come out, but I am going to start Grand Library by Heaven and Earth Designs. I purchased this a while ago, and artwork by Amy Stewart. This is the supersized max coverage lifetime project. So I will be starting this one as well. And then I haven't decided on small yet. I sort of will. I do want to use in September do that as well, but I just haven't decided which one that's going to be. The Whip Go numbers have not yet been drawn, so because it is, I think over the weekend she will draw the numbers, so I don't know what those are going to be. And then for Letters of the Month, my 2 projects, I will do Huckleberry Farm. I don't have it over here, but I'll do Huckleberry Farm. I think many of you know that from the Blue Flower. And Green Dancer, which is another Artecy project, and that is a reproduction of a Edgar Degas painting. So those are 2 of Letters of the Month, and my goal on each of those is 500 stitches. So those are my plans. I do also, once I pulled out Love One Another and had it, finally got some stitches on it, I am also getting a little bit of an itch to work on some of the projects that I haven't worked on yet this year. I've worked on all of my full coverages, so those all have gotten love, and but I have a few smaller projects many of which I started at the end of last year in preparation for No New Starts, that I knew I wasn't going to be able to have starts, and then of course started all these things, and then I haven't come back to them. So it'll be good to sort of have a chance to work on those a little bit more. I think I have 7 or 8 projects that I haven't put any stitches in this year. And I'd like to touch all my projects at least once during the year. So that is it for my plans. I have some additions to my collection, so to speak. So I won 2 giveaways. So the first one I want to show, I won from C. Zook Stitch. And this was a little giveaway that she had. So it's just a little cute little bear. And this was, I think, the pull out from one issue of The World of Cross Stitch. So if you've ever purchased that magazine, the hard copy of it, they actually a lot of times will have a sleeve around it, and then there's some sort of what they call freebie. But if you paid for the magazine, it's not really a freebie. That's sort of the way I look at it. But a little bonus thing that you might not get, that you would not get if you just purchased the digital version. And so this little, and I can feel like there's like, I think it's perforated paper inside there. So I haven't opened it up yet because I can guarantee if I opened it up, I'd lose all the supplies. So it's like a little kit that comes with it. So really cute. Love the little heart at the bottom of the foot. So that'll be a little cute one to do. And then the other one, so Charting Creations in their Facebook group, they do sort of a weekly draw that if you choose to enter, they will take your, they basically will go to your wish list and send you a chart. So you create the wish list, you can put on as many or few projects as you want, and they will send you one of them. But you can't say this is the one I want. I guess you could say that and have one item on your wish list, but I kind of like the element of surprise. So this is the one that I selected. And this came directly from Charting Creations. So I, as you know, I do my printouts because I'm just afraid, one day everything's going to crash and I want to make sure I have a hard copy of everything. But it came directly from the company. So they are allowed to send out their own PDFs. Don't worry, this was not a giveaway from someone who's giving me a legal PDF. But anyhow, this is one called Blueberry Lunch. And I love the colors. I mean, the picture is absolutely gorgeous. And I love sort of like these deep greens and then the blues and then the white of the bunnies. So no plans in the immediate future to start this, obviously with no new starts. And I've taken up all my available slots that I have right now to start. So not a new start anytime soon, but one to think about for the future about when is a good time to start it. And love this picture. And the person who sent it to me, obviously, she has an affiliation with the company. I don't know if she actually works for them or she just is helping out with the giveaways. But she went in and she said, she's, clearly has access to all the wish lists and is sending things out. And she said, I hadn't seen this one before. So, they've got hundreds of great charts on their website. And if you like full coverage and especially these kind of realistic looking pictures, it's a great resource. That is, and they have a lot of, animals and especially like, cats and dogs, if you have a particular breed, or I guess cats, not, there are like Siamese cats there, but also like tabby cats and black cats, which aren't really breeds. Domestic short hair is their breed. But they're very realistic looking and it's really nice. So really happy. So thank you to Charting Creations for this. Thank you for those thank you for those giveaways. Those are really nice. And then I did a little bit of my own shopping. So I got my purple package right before this video started from Tiny Hummingbird Stitchery. So for those of you who are not familiar, purple packaging comes from. So this is also know her as Sammy J. She has a Flosstube. And also works on as an admin of a number of the Facebook groups. So many of my acquisitions here are trying to work on get series sort of completed. So anyhow, I am collecting the Year in the Woods. So I got the owl and the woodpecker, and the bat has come out. I don't know or at least I've seen the bat. I don't know if it's available for purchase yet, or they're just sort of doing like an advanced view. Love the bat. So anyhow, but I've seen someone, there's a Facebook group, A Year in the Woods Sal on Facebook, and someone was really actively working on this and has finished it, and just watching it come together was gorgeous. So looking forward to starting these next year when I get the whole series. And I think I've mentioned this before, I will be doing three each, so 3 animals on one piece of fabric. So it just because, I barely have space. Well, if I had enough time in my life to stitch everything I wanted to, I wouldn't have enough wall space to hang everything. So fewer frames lowers the cost of having to frame in the wall space. But as you can see, lots of wall facing here right now. That's not even, sorry, getting the glare there. That's a photograph, not a cross stitch. So, but I do have cross stitch on the side walls here, so it's not that bad. Sounds blank as it looks in this view. So anyhow, and then I had a birthday. So I asked, my mother gave me a gift certificate to 123 Stitch, and I worked on completing some series that for pieces that don't know when I'm going to stitch them, but you know, I think a lot of us, when you're trying to do series, you're afraid that if you don't get them now, they won't. They might disappear. So I got a ton of threads, which I already have put with their put them in their homes. But then I got Winter from Lavender and Lace. So this was the last season that I needed for the Celtic Ladies. I right now don't want to get is it Noel, the Christmas one, and it's beautiful, but you know, there's a part of me that's like, well, if you don't get the Christmas, you put a limit on somewhere. Yeah, I probably will end up getting it at some point, but I don't feel I need it to complete the series in the same way that if I only had summer, autumn, and spring, that summer would somehow feel missing. And then I got two more from Cottage Garden for the Songbird series. So this one is Happiness. And this one is Mary. And I thought I had them all. And I pulled them all out. Take a look at them. Only counted 11. Counted again. Dug through everything. Counted 11. Turned out I only have 11. So, and as we all know, there are 12 months in the year. So I went back to try and figure out which one I was missing. And when I figured out which one I was missing, I'm like, no, I really am missing that. It's not just that I have a project, you know, the pattern that's tucked in somewhere that it shouldn't be. It's one that I haven't purchased. So next time I go to 123 Stitch, I will go ahead and purchase it. Or if I happen to come across it in the store. But it's one of those charts that if for some reason they decide to stop printing them, I'm sure I can find it somewhere. So anyhow, I'm not too worried about it. It's not like I have to rush out and get it now because it's going to disappear from the shelves. I think I may have mentioned this before. So each of these, as you know, has a word on it. And I have grand visions of changing some of the words. Some of them I'm fine. The issue I have with Mary, not that we all should not be Mary, but the issue I have with it is they're all nouns. And then Mary is an adjective. So I will be changing Mary, I think, to Peace. I reserve the right to say something else, but I think on a Christmas piece, Peace works. And then here's Happiness. There's about 5 charts that have some version of happiness. Happiness, bliss, joy. Not that these aren't all lovely words and slightly different variations on the same emotion. Bliss and joy and all this are slightly different, but I think there are other words that I want to perhaps try to get my hand at charting. I'm inspired a little bit by Jessie Marie Does Stuff, who took one of the charts that said faith and she put on family. And she was able to pull letters. You know, she didn't have to create the letters themselves. She was able to pull the letters from the other chart and then just rejigger a little bit to make things fit. So I will see if I can do that. But some of the things that I'm thinking about are like integrity, respect, dignity, some good words, that sort of mean things to me. And again, being happy, happiness is really important. But there's only the other things that are important to me too. And so if I feel like, again, in my lifetime of stitching, I can guarantee I'm going to start stitching the ones that I don't want to rechart. Wisdom is one of the first ones I probably will start. Dream is another one. I really love that pattern. So I will be doing that one. And I will definitely have one, whether it's the joy or bliss or happiness, definitely have one of those because I think that is important. I just don't need 5 patterns that basically are expressing the same thing. All right, so I'm just going to stop talking about that now. But anyhow, so that's my vision. And then, not very exciting, but I did get 2 pieces of fabric. So this is a 25 count. It's like weighs a ton. It is a full yard and it is it's a 25 count lugana, and this is what I will be doing the Grand Library on, which I showed a few minutes ago. I had really wanted to do it on 22 count because that is my preferred count, but without special ordering it, I couldn't find anything if I did it on 22 count, I think I needed 37 or 38 inches. Whatever I needed, so I could, like a 3-inch, I was nowhere close. And I said, let me do a 2-inch border and see if that gets me a little bit closer. And I still needed more than 36 inches height. Someone said, hey, why don't you try traditional stitches because they might have it in meters. But I didn't see what I wanted on their site. They might have had it. I just couldn't find it. And I just didn't feel like scouring random Etsy shops to see if I could get it. So feeling this fabric, it is quite soft. I think Magic Study is also done on 25 count. And this is Weigert. I think Magic Study it's done on, it might be a Witchelt. And it's just, it's perfectly fine, but it's a little bit rough for me. And I think I would like the softness of this Weigert better. This is a cream colored. I do prefer, if I can, I've realized that I like the cream and the ivory better for my full coverages, because if you're going to have any, if something happens and your coverage isn't perfect, because a 25 and 22 count, I do 1/1 full cross. And if for some reason it's not perfect coverage, the starkness of the white doesn't show up as much with a cream or an ivory. And then the other piece I got, this is the 22 count. Don't have any particular projects for this, but I'm sure I'll be cutting it up, and perhaps like Blueberry Lunch will be on it. So we shall see. So that is all my content that is stitching related. Let me talk a little bit about what I've been reading and watching. So on the reading front, done quite a bit of that, but the book I want to talk about this time is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm sure many of you have read some of her books. She's one of those authors that wasn't even on my radar till about a year ago. And I would see books come up from her, and people were like, oh, it was great. But I wasn't really sure what they were. I thought, okay, they're kind of like pop literature, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, sometimes it's great to read it. Sometimes I want to think a little bit more. But I was looking for some good audiobooks, and someone had suggested Daisy and the Six particularly as an audiobook. It was awesome. So that was my first book I read from her. Really enjoyed that. So anyhow, I got Malibu Rising. I read it this month, and it really compelling. So the basic plot, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a family of 4 siblings who by the present day, it takes place in 1983, most of it. The present day is they're all adults, but from like early 20s to maybe late 20s, early 30s. There's an age range, but they're adults. But basically, it's sort of that snapshot on their life, and then she goes back and sort of flashes back to their parent, or so like her parents, and sort of their father is a musician, a quite successful musician, and then their mother, who basically, by the time the story starts, so actually the father is still living, the mother has passed away by the beginning of the story, but basically the older sister has had to take care of the kids from the time that she was 16 or I think 17 in the book, and just about their relationships with each other, their relationships with their mother and father, their relationships with potential love interests, and their careers. But I think what's really compelling is it's 1983, but some of the issues, so there's one of them is they're all surfing is their sort of connection to everything. Sort of they all love to surf. One of them is a professional surfer. One of it is a photographer for surfing. One of them does nothing with surfing. She surfs, but she's either one who's like 19, 20, 21, that age. So she hasn't done much with it. She loves to surf, but she's not really a career person yet. And the other one is a surfer model. So a model, but like poses of her surfing and stuff like that. But just the, it's interesting, the dynamic and the sexism, especially the model had to face in her career, and just the ability of her trying to hold this family together. Really interesting book. Greatly enjoyed it. So if you've never read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I really encourage you to do so. They are all the ones I've read are all standalone, but I also love that she takes. I'm sorry if you can hear my kitty back there. Clearly upset that we aren't opening some door that is closed or something like that. But anyhow, her first book that she did like this, the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She's, it's about basically Evelyn Hugo is an actress, and she's created this whole Hollywood world. And then she goes on and like in Malibu Rising, she has plucked one of, so it's not that it's a sequel, but that she's taken this world that she created, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and references these characters in it. And then there's a character in Malibu Rising, Carrie Soto, again, who is a relatively minor character. And she's got her next book, which I think is just coming out now. Carrie Soto is Back, which is all about her. And she's a professional tennis player. So I'm sure you won't have to read the other books to know what's going on. So they're not, I love how like she's created this world and her characters, peripheral characters, either pop up or main characters become peripheral characters. I love when authors are able to sort of, I don't want to say world building, because that's much more for a fantasy genre, but I love it when an author sort of has created people and those people continue to be real, and other fictional real, but that they exist beyond the confines of one book. So that's the book I read. And then the TV series that I recommend to you that I've been watching is Trying. It's a British production, comedy, it's billed as a comedy, but it's, I think, more a dramedy. And it's basically about a couple in their 30s who are unable to conceive a child. And so they decide to adopt, or to foster, with the expectation that they can adopt, and all of their frustrations dealing with it. And, how various family members are dealing with it. And yes, it's got its comic moments, but I think it also highlights on the one, that yes, it's very important that when you are placing children that they are going into stable, loving homes. But at the same time, the hoops that people have to jump through in order to prove that they are a stable, loving home. And so just a lot of fun to watch. Really look forward. We binge watched, I think, the first season or two, and now like the episodes are dropping one by one, and it's driving us crazy because we really enjoy it. And it is an English program, BBC, I think. But one of the things my husband has commented on that I was not aware about was they, they're so true to who they are that like the sibling groups, so the main couple, whatever, their accents are different, but that like her sister and her parents all have the same accent, even though like they're all living in London now. That's not where they're from originally. And the same with him and his family. And my husband, that to him makes it's kind of, think about if you're an American from the American perspective, that to have, two siblings who grew up in the same household and one has a strong New York accent and one has a strong Southern accent. It probably wouldn't happen if they were close in age. You may be influenced by your parents, you might not, but you would have that same, you would probably be influenced by your peers in the way you sound. So anyhow, my husband has really appreciated that. I didn't, it's totally lost on me. They all sound English to me. So I can tell the difference between like an English accent and a Scottish accent, and sometimes like a Northern English accent. But some of the other subtleties get a little bit lost on my American ear. So that is it for my TV recommendation. And then let me jump now backwards into the life stuff. So as I mentioned at the beginning, my husband and I went to something called Armageddon 3. This is much more his thing than my thing, but it was a lot of fun. It's basically the TV show The 100, if you're familiar with it, it's been finished for several years now. But basically the cast periodically gets together and holds, like if you're familiar with Comic-Con, it's the same concept, but it's just for this one show. And so, I've watched parts of the show. This was really something I was doing for my husband, going with him. But I had a lot of fun. So we went to Boston, and you just go. I mean, we did the first day when we got there. It was before it started. We went into Boston. We went to the aquarium, walked along the waterfront, had a lot of fun. Next day as well, we didn't have anything until the late afternoon, so we went and hiked the Freedom Trail, which basically goes from a lot of the sort of sites for the Revolutionary War. So that was really interesting, and it's a long walk, it's several miles, and it takes you through several different neighborhoods in Boston. So it was great to see the flavor. We did it backwards, so to speak. Like the Freedom Trail starts at whatever, I don't know the name of the park. Starts at one place, which is really touristy and everything else, and then it takes you through. And I will say that we started at the end, and we actually the neighborhood where Bunker Hill is absolutely gorgeous. We really really liked that neighborhood, and then it took you through like an Italian part of town that had a lot of lovely cafes and other things. So of course we had to stop to have a little beverage break. So it was a really enjoyable walk. We chose that day not to go into any of the museums because we knew we had to get back. And so, but it was good to sort of immerse ourselves in American history and to be reminded of what people fought for. So then anyhow, kind of get it started. And basically you have an opportunity. You can, we did a version where we got to, a small group of us with one of the stars. We had breakfast with her and just got to have like an hour-long chat with her, sort of what she's up to and sort of questions people might have had about the show. There are, and then throughout the next 2 days, there were lots of panels. I went to like maybe one of them. I went to the full cast one, and then I went to another one. My husband did more, but it's just a chance for people to ask questions about the actors, as well as about the show. And then there were also sessions where you could get autographs and selfies, and then also a proper photo. So I didn't, you had to pay for each of those. The panels, once you paid the entrance, those all were included. But so I did some of them. My husband did a lot more, but I'm going to include a couple of the selfies here. And so it was just a lot of fun to take those photos. And I would say, the actors themselves, some of them have gone on and done a lot of other things. Some of them, the 100 was sort of, they might still be in acting, but they haven't had quite the same successes with that. So, this is a great way for them to supplement their income. And then, so we flew back on Monday, and then I woke up super early on Tuesday morning to work as an election worker. So this is a nonpartisan role. It is in the state of Florida. It is not a volunteer position. You actually are paid for it. I didn't know that going in, but I think it's more if you're paid, then you're held accountable. You're more likely to show up. Because you have to be at the polls at 5:45 for a 7 o'clock start. And so basically it is nonpartisan, the role that I was doing. So we are basically there just to make sure that people who come in are registered. That was my role, was I checked ID to make sure that they had already registered to vote, and that, that they were voting in their correct precinct, and that they didn't have to go somewhere else, which for us was because Florida had significant redistricting after the 2022 census. So that was a bit of a challenge for us, trying to, a lot of people had voted in a church, and a lot of people had been voting at that church for 10, 20 years. And then they were told, we're sorry, you may not have moved, but the line did, and now you got to go somewhere else. And, some of those cases, it was the church across the street. So that was fine. Other cases, it was, a mile or two away. So it wasn't, and a lot of people were those who were like, I used to vote there, and then they moved me here, and now I have to go back. Most people were good-natured about it. There were some people which I was surprised about how far away their location was. So I don't know if they had moved and they just didn't realize they had to go vote somewhere else. And the state of Florida, you get directed where you need to go, but like by 7 o'clock, if you're not in line at the end of the day, then you're not going to be, show up at 7:05, you're out of luck. So whether or not people, said, oh, I have time. I mean, you had some people rushing in before work and they didn't have time to go somewhere else. I hope that they were able to go either on their lunch break or at the end of the day. We have pretty steady voting. This is a primary in Florida. We have fairly, the morning rush and the lunchtime rush. And then sort of not the end of day, but like after work. So starting about 4 o'clock. But we have very little time where we didn't have, a 5-minute period where one person wasn't wandering in. So I'm really happy about that. I think voting is vital. And I think it's really important to engage in the democratic process. You need to have your voice heard. And I am really glad that I had that opportunity to do it. And I intended to volunteer again, or not volunteer, but to work again at the general election in November, which I assume will have a lot more people who are showing up to vote. A lot of people don't really care about who their party candidate is. But they do care more about which party gets elected in November. So whatever your views are, I hope that you will take the opportunity to vote if you are a registered voter where you live. And if you're not registered yet and you are a U.S. citizen, I encourage you to register to vote. So that is all I have for you today. I am heading off to Coulter Station for a retreat. So that's near the Kansas City area. And that is, I think, the second weekend in September. So I will come and make a video after that. So until then, bye everyone. Happy stitching.